Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and we are here for another episode, a new segment that we have called the STEM Block, where it will be myself and Henry Wilkins hosting this segment. Many of you have been following the past two interviews that we did with Henry in regards to getting a school back in the Fifth Ward. And this is a movement that he and many of the parents have been working on. He's been leading the charge, and the man is not giving up. Absolutely not giving up. And I love it. I respect it. And he's determined. And even though we're in this down period right now, this lockdown with coronavirus, COVID-19, he's still keeping the word out there because eventually we will get back to some sort of normalcy, a new normal,
Right.
some sort of normalcy, and we cannot forget the big picture. And this man has vision, so it's awesome. And then we have our first guest on today. Many Evanstonians know this woman. When you see her out and about, everyone's like, "That's Terri Shepard. That's Terri Shepard."
Thank you.
But
Thank you for that compliment.
she's royalty in Evanston, and I had the pleasure of sitting down and speaking with her over coffee, and just her travels and her knowledge and her wisdom is just, I picked up, learned so much, and have brought her aboard a coalition that I'm working on as well, because she's just a wealth of knowledge, and the woman fears no one. She fears no one. So we're going to get this started. I know there's a lot of people out there wondering, what is the STEM block? What is it going to take to get a school back in the Fifth Ward? First of all, I know Henry knows that it's possible and it's going to happen. Terri, what are your thoughts on getting a school back in the Fifth Ward?
Well, I, like Henry, believe it's not only possible, but it is going to happen. I've been involved with two previous efforts to bring a school back in the Fifth Ward, but I do think the time is right now. Of course, I thought every time was right. And I thought the last program or the last plan that Dr. Murphy instituted was perfect, and of course it failed. And so you have to learn from your mistakes, and so you have to build a broader coalition maybe. And that's what I admire about Henry, the group of people that he has contacted to actually discuss the school and try to get partners. I think he's just done a yeoman's job at this, and I just want to be a part of that. Of course, I'm not going to give up. And Henry was the last vehicle to come forward that says, "Hey, let's do this." And so I hopped on board with him, and I've made myself available to Henry at any time in any way that I can help him. But I do believe that the Fifth Ward has suffered because of the loss of a school. When you look at what holds a neighborhood together, most times a school is a linchpin. There's churches and there's businesses. Well, the only thing left in the Fifth Ward in any surmountable degree is churches. There's plenty of churches in the Fifth Ward, but if you look at the number of businesses that were in the Fifth Ward prior to the closing of Foster, and then you look at what's there now, there might have been 50 businesses, viable businesses in the Fifth Ward that are no longer there. And now you can literally name them on one hand. And so a school will bring a vibrancy back to the Fifth Ward that hasn't been there in decades. And that's what it'll take. And since that is the heart, the central core is the heart of the Black community in Evanston, I think is vital for that community to have a school. And then not to only mention what the people that are still there, because we know there's been a large flight of African American families out of the Fifth Ward. But I think what has caused the most stress for me is that, for instance, they didn't send all the kids to one school. where they could maintain some sort of normalcy within a neighborhood. They have corners in the Fifth Ward where kids go on the four corners, all four corners go to a different school. So that makes it difficult for the parents. That makes it difficult for a kid to find someone to do his homework with, because the kid closest to him may not even go to his school. So I think it's imperative that we bring a school back there, and that the whole city should join together to see that we can do it, to make it happen.
Mm, mm. It, you know what? Have you, Terry, have you spoken to anyone from that time period who was key in either um, kind of blocking a school being rebuilt in
Well,
Evanston?
let me tell you, this lady is no longer with us anymore.
Mm.
I go back a long way. I like to tell folks I can, if Bennett Johnson's not in the audience, I can provide the historical context, but he's the only one that's been around longer than me. But years and years ago, Dar Johnson was the superintendent at the time, and he was going to introduce a plan that would create redistricting, which meant that once again the Black community, the students in the Black community, were going to be parceled out to different schools. And so this was before the new district building was built, obviously it's before Dr. Murphy. And the whole community, for the first time, I think, during my tenure in working on anything educational, there was a large group of white families from Northwest End and then Black families in the Southeast End, because we were the families that were chosen that could no longer go to our, quote, neighborhood schools as we knew it.
Hmm.
So we would have monster school board meetings in the auditorium of King Lab School. So, and that was when they gave everybody 3 minutes to talk, and the board meeting didn't begin until everybody in the audience would have their opportunity to speak. And we would run through the alphabet a whole time and maybe a time and a half. That's how many people were passionate about this subject.
Hmm.
And one evening, as I was waiting to um, speak, I was probably Z or double A, something like that. And this lady walked down the aisle very slow. I remember she had on a denim skirt, buttoned up the front. It was like below the knee. And I knew who it was. It was Edna Summers. And Edna Summers had been sent there to speak on behalf of the NAACP because she may have been the education chair, which I am now. And when she got up to the mic, she said, "There's going to be a whole lot of people that are angry with me this evening." And then she
Oh.
said, "But I am so sorry for the part I played in desegregating Evanston schools."
Mm.
And I thought, wow, from that point on, I know what I'm going to be about. I'm going to pick up Edna's banner, and I'm always going to speak about how unfair that was to the children in the Fifth Ward. And so I have been there ever since. And this was like Dar Johnson. So this was pre Dr. Murphy, pre the last guy we had. So I know people that took part in that on both sides. Now, when we get to I think you were asking me about the school that failed. Um, I worked on that committee. Um, I would go to various schools where you would have like open mic nights and people could speak. And what was interesting is that the people that were against the school didn't necessarily come out in droves. What they had on their side, and this has never happened before, and I anticipate it not ever happening again, there were school board members that actively campaigned against that school. So, for instance, we might go into Dewey to make our presentation about the benefits of the school. And I specifically mentioned Dewey because that's one I remember. Um, the most prolific speaker I thought was at the last meeting, which was at Chute, and I'll tell you about that. But with the board members there speaking against it, we were kind of hamstrung from the very beginning because they argued the financial aspects of it. And so their issue was you don't need a school to get what we wanted. Well, that was code as I read it, heard it. You don't need to give the Black kids a new school in the Fifth Ward to get what you need all over the city, because we want lockers, we want capital improvements, we want all this. We don't need a school. But I mentioned the very last meeting, it was at Chute. And of course, the more meetings were held, the smaller the audiences got. But there was a senior white couple, Caucasian couple, who lived in the Northwest End. And they spoke. And if they'd have spoke at the first one, I really think it would have made a lot of difference. But they pointed out how they had moved from Chicago into Evanston because they wanted their children to have an integrated education. And so they were around at the closing of Foster School. But they mentioned how they had seen the decimation of that neighborhood by something they so actively participated in. And they apologized for it. And I thought, if we could have had them speak at one of the first meetings, it might have made a lot of difference. But of course, by then, the die was cast. And we couldn't get what we needed, like I said, because the school board was campaigning against us. And if you know anything about board participation, the board votes on it, and then you're supposed to act as it as a whole. You're not supposed to have a renegade group off to the side campaigning against what they all voted to support. And that's what we were up against. But to actively to say I know this person, that person, hell, there was a whole community that worked against the school. And if you look at how they voted, you can see it. You can see it.
Wow. Goodness gracious.
That was probably way more than you wanted. Tell me to stop when you want me to stop.
No, I mean it's almost like a movie. It's and then to know that people are still voting against it and
right.
still complaining about the funding and the taxes even still today.
Right.
It just amazes me.
Right.
And
if I could interject one other thing, like I said, just stop me when you want me to stop. But if you'll remember when the last referendum came about, and there was a large group in support of that. And I mean, they had a campaign like I'd never seen before in Evanston for anything to do with the school board. And so week after week, there were parents, mostly white, some Black, speaking in support of the referendum. And it was going to provide smaller class sizes, all these things that were allegedly going to benefit Black kids. So the last meeting before the vote, I was there, and I went up to the mic and I said, I don't want you board members or anybody that's here to believe everybody that's Black in Evanston supports this, because not only do we have a history for showing that when we do support something that you promise us great benefits, we don't get it. So I asked Black people not to vote for it, because I said, trust me, you're not going to get what they told you you're going to get. And as a result, I don't want to say as a result, but a year, 2 years beyond that referendum, you've got a school, one of the premier schools in Evanston, where not a single Black kid passed the MAP test. And this is after they told us all their kids are going to do better. Well, where's the proof? You had all these people vote for this referendum to raise their taxes, and then you've got a premier school where not a single Black kid passed the test. What is that about?
Mm.
What did my money get me? It got me higher property taxes, but I don't see any benefit. So, you know, Black people have to be more educated and, you know, maybe have focus groups or something and really discuss it, because all the glitters ain't gold.
That's right. And I think Henry was talking about doing more focus groups. We have to be more informed of the process, because otherwise, you know, they can talk circles around you and
Right.
be very deceiving.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and yeah, you need that insight, you need that information, you need somebody that knows the system backwards, forwards, inside out, because game will be ran, because it's been ran for ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to build on that, Malika, one of the things that, you know, Terri advised me to do is, you know, reach out to the folks that were able to pass the referendum from 2017. So Candace Chow was a key member in ensuring that that referendum won overwhelmingly. When I talked to Eamon Kelly and I talked to other folks that were part of that 2017 referendum, the approach that they had taken in terms of getting insight and feedback from citizens and residents of Evanston fed their marketing campaign. It fed their messaging. And so, you know, I've reached out to Candace several times to say, hey, you know, lay it on me. Tell me, you know, all the things that you guys did to, you know, get the type of results you did from 2017. And, you know, she said, you know, early on when they first started the referendum, there was a lot of doubt. There's a lot of doubt that they would pass a referendum. I mean, you know, people told her in the face it couldn't happen. And, you know, she grinded away and pulled a team together and were successful. So you know, Candace is definitely a person that, you know, I continue to reach out to and connect with to, you know, make sure we're thinking about things differently for this pursuit for a school.
Mm.
Yeah.
So when you all, I like the idea of the focus group. The deal with the focus group. Do you think people will really turn out for these folks? It's so hard to get people out. Well, right now nobody can come out, but you know, when we get back to again our new normal, some degree of normalcy, where we can interact in person again. Or I don't know, maybe there's going to have to be a new way in which to do a focus group now.
Right.
You know, how to get people to really participate, because I think one of the issues in Evanston, like with reparations that came up last week, there was talks of delaying it or doing cuts.
Right.
So imagine, you know, there was probably hopes that nobody was paying attention. You know.
Right.
And all they had to say was, oh, well, we talked about it in the council meeting. You know, everyone knows there's a council meeting. You should have been paying attention to the council meeting. And next thing you know, reparations would have been off the table or delayed 10, 20 years from now or something. You know, how do you get people involved? Because it's important to get a school back in the Fifth Ward. How do you get them to stay engaged and get informed? I mean, we're doing the STEM block so people can, you know, start seeing that the movement is still going, but how do you plan to get people involved?
We know that's going to be a struggle. So yes, I think we are thinking constantly about, you know, how do we keep it front of mind for folks. So I'll say a couple things. One is, you know, we have thought about hiring a marketing firm to think strategically and develop the messaging for a full-blown marketing plan. And that plan would include getting input not just from folks from the Fifth Ward, but also folk from the 6th and 7th Ward, which were the wards that that voted very heavily against the referendum from 2012. So, you know, when we met with Dr. Horton, he said, hey, you know, it's great that you're seeking input from, you know, the locations where the school would be located, but make sure you're hearing all voices across Evanston. So I said, yes, absolutely. We'll make sure that, you know, that is a part of the plan and the details of, you know, who we're talking with as far as getting input. The other thing I think this time around that is significantly different from the last referendum is this conversation around reparations. So Evanston is the first town in the United States of America that not only is talking about reparations, but actually has funding for reparations in the tune of $10 million coming from cannabis taxes. This is historical. This is historical. You have city council members that are heavily involved in deciding the plan for reparations. You have leaders across Evanston, key leaders across Evanston that are involved in this pursuit. And one of the things that's fortunate for us that came about more recently was the conversation of creating a subcommittee under the reparations umbrella. And that subcommittee would be a part of determining, returning a school to the Fifth Ward. So, by this, STEM community school pursuit being under the reparations umbrella is huge for us. Reparations will continue to be talked about on a regular basis. And so that will help our cause, even more. I will say, we are fortunate to be a part of the reparations. I mean, it just so happened, I remember a couple years ago when I first started this pursuit, I ran into my fraternity brother's name is Keith Terri, who was the president of the school board back when Dr. Murphy was around. And he told me, Henry, to get a school, it's a Goliath type task. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do. And you're going to need, folks not only from the school board to be, helping push this thing along and support from them, but you're going to need, folks across the city. And so he said, hey, you need to reach out to Hecky Powell. You need to talk to Peter Braithwaite. I said, okay, I'll talk to both of those. So I talked to Peter a couple years ago, kind of early on in our process, and I reconnected him. Actually, Terri encouraged me to talk to him. I said, hey, Terri, I'm running into some, thinking about funding, some market research and doing some focus groups. She's like, call Peter. I said, okay, call Peter up. Peter, Terri, and myself talked. I caught him up on, what we've been pursuing over the last couple of years. And Peter said, okay. He's like, I hear you need money. I said, I'll work on that. And then he said, I think reparations is also a good place to, to further your cause. And next thing you know, I get a text from Peter saying, hey, Henry, you're on the agenda for reparations. And the next thing you know, Terri was invited, and we joined a call last Thursday evening. It was more of a meeting around with key stakeholders in Evanston. And I know Terri was contacted by another alderwoman, Ann Rainey, who encouraged her to join this as well. So, we have some key folks, again, in Evanston that their voices mean something, and I think can influence the outcome for, winning over a STEM community school.
Right.
This is awesome. So it is picking up some momentum. This is great.
Mm-hmm. It is. All we have to do is make sure that the council doesn't find other sources, or not sources, but other uses for that $10 million. That's what we need to stay in the council's face about. Another thing that I learned prior to this call, but I was concerned about, what is the Black community going to do with $10 million? I can spend $10 million right quick. But it was Ann Rainey that explained to me that this will be ongoing because there will be a percentage of sales taxes from here on out that can be used for the purposes of rebuilding the Fifth Ward in whatever ways, whether it be housing, whatever. Of course, I'm interested in a school. And that's why Ann first contacted me. As a matter of fact, she called and she said, do you know anything about reparations? I said, you're kidding, right? So she and I had dinner, real nice dinner. And then as Henry said, she invited me to participate in last Thursday's meeting. So that was good. I really felt good to be asked to participate in that, because you always feel like you have something to add, even if it's just a pair of legs that can run someplace to pick up something that you need some additional information. But I am really enthused about serving on that committee, because like I said, but Bennett Johnson's on it too. So like I said, he has more history of the longevity of what's been done in the Fifth Ward than I. But I do think that together, and I volunteered right away for the Education Committee. And so I'm continuing to look forward to working on anything that can rebuild a school uh, for the neighborhood in the Fifth Ward, for the kids.
And just to build. I mean, we're very early in the process. Plan is to get the folks together that volunteered to sign up for the education committee and find out what the end goal is. Ideally, it is to bring a school. I'm not sure if there's other, visions in mind as far as, what other education, activities they could pursue or try to fix or repair. One of the things that I feel that people need to understand is that a school is different than, other types of education improvement. I mean, people talk about, well, you can improve, extracurricular activities. You can, make sure teachers, are doing a better job, dealing with diverse students. I mean, yeah, those are all great things. I hired a executive director of Black Student Achievement. Yes, those are all great things, But to deliver a school is a colossal task. And so you have to work at it. You have to make it a priority. And it's not just good enough to just, talk about it and think, yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, there was a study done by the school district. They did a study on busing, and they said that, kids are disproportionately impacted by the fact that the school was closed. In addition to that, the school district had performed a study to say, okay, so what are the things that you can do to fix this busing situation? They looked at a myriad of options, a lot of options across the board. And what the consultants found is that the only way to fix the busing inequity is to open up a school in the Fifth Ward.
Right.
Like, that's not even a consultant study done by, private citizens. This is studies done by the school district. And time again, it's like, oh, well, we know this, but we don't have the money for it. It's not a priority. We have to worry about, teachers union contracts. I don't know what the next excuse is going to be this time around. I hope there isn't another one. Now we have a new superintendent, so we have a leadership in place now. So, hopefully the idea of making a priority changes. But we are hoping that, the conversation, at least for this education component of the reparations, includes returning a school to the central core. We have a lot of key folks that signed up for the education committee, key leaders in Evanston, and hopefully they galvanize and support the idea as well. So more to come. We'll see what comes when we have a conversation around what's the end goal of the education component of reparations.
Okay, and I have one more question. For those who are concerned that, it could possibly affect their taxes, what would be, this is directed at both of you, what would be your message to them, to people maybe in the 6th Ward, the 7th Ward, anybody around Evanston that is, thinking, well, I don't know, this might affect my taxes, I don't know. What's your message to them?
Henry, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we are being very intentional with is we intend to have minimal impact on taxes. That is, in terms of criteria for delivering the school, it is to be tax impact neutral. The environment right now in Evanston, people are taxed out. I mean, the property taxes in Evanston have forced a lot of residents to move out of Evanston because of the tax. People are moving, to Niles and the Skokie because, it's it's become more expensive. So, we are looking actually to engage an individual that has experience with educational finances to develop a plan and options of, how to pay for the school with minimal impact. So that is, front of mind for us. And it is something that is, up there as far as priorities go for, the vision for the school. So we have no intentions of running any type of tax referendum,
Right.
asking voters to pay more in taxes. So, we're looking for out of box thinking. Individual that we have in mind has done that with other projects across Chicago. And Peter hopefully can help deliver money to pay for his fees, because it costs money, and it's an investment. We think it's a worthwhile investment, and so that is our plan, is to deliver the school with minimal impact or no impact on taxes. And if people are interested as far as specifics, I mean, we're early in the process. We're looking at a lot of different options on how to accomplish that. So I think it's kind of premature to give a lot of details on how you deliver that. But our intent is, no more taxes. This is, we had one in 2017. School board members don't want to, pursue another tax. I know they're facing budget constraints, and I hope they can figure out a way to avoid another tax referendum. But we'll see. So yeah, so that I will tell people, we are working night and day
Right.
to make
Right.
no new taxes on this thing.
Right. But then, I would just add, kind of being a devil's advocate here, everything cost. Everything cost. What's it worth to you to bring a school back to a community that's been decimated, to give you what you said you wanted, which was an integrated education? So what's it worth to you to correct that historical wrong, regardless of how great it may have sounded? We want to give our kids an integrated education. Well, you guys got that. And you wanted to say your kids go to school with Black kids. So you got that. But what did that Black kid get that had to come to school where your kid did? What did he get? Did he lose anything? Did his community lose anything? What did his parents, how did my kid getting on the bus riding 40 minutes to go to school impact whether I could provide anything in the PTA? There's so many things that the community loses when you don't have a school there. So I don't know, I can't even quote on what the costs were in desegregating the schools. I don't know. That was 1969. But certainly the African American community in the Central Core, we'll call it, or the Fifth Ward, they didn't win. And they have not, there's no stats that you can point to where they have had consistent wins. It's just impossible to take a kid out of his neighborhood, take him away from his, heck, you can't even go home for lunch. When I was in school, we walked home for lunch. Heck, we walked to school. That's what those kids did. They went home for lunch. They walked to school with their friends. They walked home with their friends. They had after school activities. These kids, many of them can't participate after school because the school bus leaves. So they have no way to get home after that extracurricular activity. So it's going to cost, but it's going to be for the benefit of everybody. So you can't do anything without cost. So that's just the way I look at it. I'm willing. I didn't want this last one. I told people not to vote for it. I was right. So I would urge people to stand behind this, because is history. It's a historical wrong that had been committed on that community, and the whole city of Evanston owes some payback. That's just the way I look at it. Payback.
And I think we should end it right there. That's a good note to end it on. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm really excited about this. So thank you all so much for all that you're doing. And Henry, what do we have next for the STEM block?
Next conversation, we'll have probably a little bit more information around what happens with these reparations meetings. Hopefully we'll have some headway as far as thinking about, funding some of the foundational work that we think is necessary. So I know Peter's working on our behalf to do that and set up some meetings with some key leaders in Evanston. And we'll see where that takes us. But, every week there's an update. So what I'm saying today might, something else might be more pressing. And so we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Terri Shepard. Thank you. I love your fire.
Oh, I was wondering if I was going a little over the top. Sometimes I can't do that.
I love it. And thank you as always, Henry, for, keeping it going and not giving up. I know you all have come across some obstacles, people going against you. And to me, these are the best stories, is when you've come up against so much and you kept going no matter what.
Right.
You kept going no matter what.
Yeah.
So thank you. And everybody stay tuned for the next STEM block. Let's keep updated on what's happening and provide the support, because we need a school back in the 5th Ward.
Yes, we do. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
We'll talk. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
And this has been Malika, Evanston Live TV. That was Terri Shepard and Henry Wilkins. And wow, I am really, really excited about this. Very, very excited about this. So you all stay tuned here for the STEM block here on Evanston Live TV. Henry's going to be keeping us updated on new information, ways for people to get involved. I'll put in the description how you can contact him if you want to be a part of this movement to get a school back into the 5th Ward, and just learn more about the history of what happened with the school in the 5th Ward and where everything is now. So you all, again, as I've been leaving every episode, please stay safe out there, follow the guidelines, keep your 6 feet distance, wear your mask, your gloves, take your shoes off at your front door so you're not tracking COVID-19 into your house, and do your best to stay home as much as you can. Okay, you guys have a great day, and stay tuned for more. We have some awesome guests, a lot of amazing things going on in Evanston. Even though we're on lockdown, the world is still moving. People are still making things happen. All right, you guys have a great day.